Good morning. As he said, my name is Juliane McAdam, and I'm the co-chair of the League of Women Voters Centennial Celebrations Committee. I've been asked to speak to you about the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage and the ongoing work of the League to continue to educate and empower voters and encourage active participation in our democracy. So I'm going to begin with what is most important, and that is to urge everyone here to be sure you are registered to vote in the primary on March 3rd and the general election on November 3rd. I find it rather, forgive me, pathetic that voter turnout in the U.S. averages around 50%. Your vote is your voice in our democracy, and every vote is important. So please encourage everyone you know to register and vote. Women fought for the right to vote long before the suffrage movement. Nearly 150 years before the House of Representatives voted to pass the 19th Amendment, the future First Lady, Abigail Adams, wrote to her husband, "I long to hear that you have declared an independency. And by the way, in the new code of laws, which I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation." The rebellion that the ladies would foment formally began with the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, which produced a declaration of sentiments that stated, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal." Does that take away from my time? No. Women's right to vote, however, was put on the back burner during the Civil War era in favor of a push to abolish slavery. With Reconstruction, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, and the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to the freed slaves. Unfortunately, the 14th Amendment inserted the words "male citizens" when it came to voting rights. The 15th Amendment prevented denying the right to vote based on race, but women were excluded. The struggle for women's suffrage grew in the early part of the 20th century, but again, choices were made. The suffragists feared that if they included African American women, it might hurt their cause. There were many prominent black women fighting for suffrage, but they were quite literally relegated to the back of the parade of the suffragists. In February 1920, seeing that the 19th Amendment would likely be ratified, Carrie Chapman Catt founded the League of Women Voters to educate and empower the newly enfranchised women. From the beginning, the League was nonpartisan, but, and this is a big but, Catt said in her inaugural speech that League members should be involved with the parties because that is where policy is shaped. The League does take positions on policy issues, such as fighting voter suppression, redistricting, and money in politics. Our local league developed a civil discourse program for local governments that has been adopted by other leagues. We conduct a democracy concierge service at the SLO City Council meetings to help citizens navigate the process. In the past 3 years, our high school voter registration team has registered over 2,000 students, local students. The league also continues to work on voter education with candidate forums and Voter's Edge, an online tool to give you unbiased information about issues, candidates, and the money supporting them. I encourage all of you to check out votersedge.org. There are some bookmarks over there to help you. And our committee is planning a large community celebration on August 22nd in Mission Plaza to commemorate the ratification. If you would like to be involved, please see the flyer at the back of the room. In August 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, stating that the right to vote could not be abridged on account of sex. Over the next 45 years, leading up to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Congress gradually expanded voting rights with the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 and the McCarran-Walter Act of 1952, which granted citizenship and voting rights to Asian Americans. But the Constitution gives to the states the power to actually regulate voting. And as we know, many states continued and continue to this day to chip away at the progress that has been made with gerrymandering, voter ID laws, and other tactics. Our charge today is to be vigilant, to guard our right to vote, to work to protect and expand minority voting rights everywhere, and most importantly, to use this precious right that so many have fought for, and to vote. Thank you.